This is an age of disruption, of profound revolutionary change.
What we're really asking ministers is to empower the ambassadors.
The only thing that you really push forth is the truth.
You don't see many women represented when it comes to the decisions as to how to handle the pandemic.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of Politico's Healthcare Summit. I'm Joanna Roberts, Politico's health editor, and I'll be your MC again for a packed agenda. And today we're going to cast our gaze forward to look at some of the emerging technologies and issues in health policy and what the future of the EU health policy will or may look like. Because while some topics feel like they're always with us, squeezed budgets, inequality in medicines access, undervaluation of healthcare workers, downgrading of health as a priority, we also live in a fast-changing world where there are new threats and new opportunities. So we're going to be looking ahead at artificial intelligence and how to turn it into a valuable tool that can help solve some of our problems, at the promises and risks of big data in the health sphere, and at what needs to be done to help us really benefit from advanced therapies. And we'll be hearing from some of the key people who are shaping European health policy about their vision for the next few years and beyond. We have Frank van den Broeke, the Health Minister for Belgium, which will be taking up the rotating European Council presidency from January. A group of MEPs from the Health Committee of the European Parliament on their vision for the future of EU health policy. And then we'll be rounding off the day with an interview with the EU's Health Commissioner, Stella Kyriakides. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank our partners for making this summit possible. Our leading partners, AstraZeneca, FPA, Emergent, Pfizer, and PPTA. Our presenting partners, Intuitive, Janssen, Novavax, and STADA. And our visibility partner, the European Federation of Nurses. So a couple of housekeeping notes. You can ask questions, please do, through the Swapcard platform. If you're in the room, you should be able to scan a QR code on the screens. Otherwise, please check the instructions on our event website. Once you're on the platform, do chat amongst yourselves and ask questions in the question box, which is to the right of the screen on a desktop and below the live stream if you're viewing on your mobile. Please do talk about us on X or the social media of your choice. Our X hashtag is Politico Healthcare. And now, I'll hand you over for the opening remarks from Sonal Bhatia, the Chief Medical Officer for Rare Disease at Pfizer, followed by our opening interview on whether we need a Hippocratic Oath in AI with Natasha Azzopardi-Muscat from the World Health Organization, led by Ashley. Thank you very much and enjoy the day.
Hello, my name is Sonal Bhatia, and I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Rare Disease at Pfizer. I'm honored to kick off the second day of this year's Politico EU Healthcare Summit and for Pfizer to be part of critical discussions for stakeholders across the healthcare ecosystem, including patients and patient representatives, medical professionals, policymakers, and industry. The medical landscape in Europe and the needs for patients are constantly evolving and at a very rapid pace. And our collective partnership is a must in addressing these societal challenges and making sure that all eligible patients are benefiting from breakthrough medicines. Disease, in its many forms, continue to have a devastating impact. Far too many patients still suffer from illnesses that we hope can be further prevented or potentially even cured in the coming years. Pfizer is proud to have played a role in developing and manufacturing some of the most important medical innovations over more than 150 years. But we know that there's still more that's still to be done. Our work is guided by a dedication to scientific innovation and human compassion so that every patient has the treatment and care that they need. Our purpose at Pfizer is to deliver breakthroughs that change patients' lives, and patients are at the heart of all that we do. Aligned with this purpose, we're working to unlock the promise of exciting new innovations, such as gene therapy, for the millions of people worldwide living with rare genetic diseases, a topic which will be discussed more in depth by my colleague during one of the panel sessions this morning. Other topics you will hear about from today's participants include the evolving healthcare policy landscape, as well as harnessing and managing artificial intelligence and collection of medical information. We are acutely aware that patients, their families, and their communities are waiting, and that time is of the essence. As we look to the future, we're working to maximize our capabilities to deliver healthcare solutions that provide all patients with a better experience and meet their needs in the most innovative and efficient ways. This will require harnessing the power of digital tools, including AI, to develop customized healthcare platforms and place the world's health information at people's fingertips. We're also working to improve the experience for patients and advocates participating in clinical trials. Pfizer is proud to be leading sponsor for the POLITICO EU Healthcare Summit and to be joined by inspiring leaders across the healthcare ecosystem to spark important dialogue as we continue to tackle some of the world's greatest healthcare challenges, today and in the future, together. Have a great session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Healthcare Summit. I'm Ashley Furlong, and I'm really delighted to be speaking to Natasha Azzopardi-Muscat, Director of the Division on Country Health Policies and Systems at the World Health Organization. We're going to be speaking about AI in healthcare. It's a technology that's infiltrating every aspect of healthcare, from helping to recruit the right patients for clinical trials, to being used in medical devices, and helping with communication with doctors. The World Health Organization might not be known for being the global authority on AI, but it's fast making a name for itself in the space. And a lot of that work is happening right here in Europe. Before we start, just a few housekeeping remarks. You can ask questions through the Swapcard platform. If you're in the room, you can scan the QR code on the screens, and if you're watching online, go to the website and it'll give you the instructions. Please talk to us on X or Twitter, or the social media of your choice. Our hashtag is Politico Healthcare. Thank you, Natasha, for joining us virtually from Kazakhstan, where you're at the WHO Regional Committee for Europe. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to speak to us about this important issue. I'm going to start quite big. Natasha, could you set out the biggest opportunity for AI in healthcare, and what is the biggest risk? So an opportunity and a risk in your mind.
Good morning, Ashley, and thank you for inviting me for this interview. I think we're at a very exciting time. And as you rightly say, there are opportunities and risks. If I had to think about the greatest opportunity is for AI to really transform the way in which health services and healthcare is delivered, to make it actually more democratic, to give patients and users the opportunity to be more actively involved in understanding what is going on and shaping the decisions. I think this is really the greatest opportunity to transform. Of course, it's also really needed because everybody is very worried, as we were hearing at the opening of today's session, about the health workforce, about health financing. So I think AI can make a positive change to the health sector in all these areas. But you also asked me about the risk. I think the greatest risk, obviously, and as a medical doctor myself, this is always the lens that I look through, is that we end up with a situation where patients are actually harmed. Why? Because, for example, the AI is not tested sufficiently for safety, and then can end up producing more harm than good. Or, for example, we end up with a situation where AI, because of the way it is developed, leads to certain biases in its algorithms and ends up actually leaving certain groups of the population behind or discriminating against them. So, as in everything we do in medicine and science, first and foremost, we want to take steps to ensure that we do not harm. And secondly, then we want to advance and we want to make sure that we use technologies for the benefit of the people's health, ideally everywhere, globally. And this is what is beautiful about AI too, that perhaps in a short period of time, we can really make sure that we are able to close health gaps.
We're going to get to some of those risks and possibilities to mitigate those risks in just a bit, but I'm wondering why this is such an important area for the WHO. The WHO has many priorities, many sort of pressing crises that they need to deal with. Why is the WHO moving into the space when we're not seeing that sort of leadership necessarily across the rest of Europe? And why does the WHO want to make sure that this regulation around AI is sound?
First and foremost, it goes always back to our basic values and principles that health is a human right for all. So we want to make sure that the values of equity, transparency, solidarity are really at the forefront of all the developments that are taking place. And it is in this vein that, for example, just last week, again, a series of guidance was published, making it very clear that we need to ensure that AI is governed and steered in the right direction, such that there is full transparency in the development, such that we ensure that the principles of equity are upheld, such that we make sure that what is being produced and developed is sound, scientifically sound. So just in the same way as we develop clinical guidelines based on best evidence, and we work with countries to make sure that they have in place the necessary structures, institutes, capacities to ensure, for example, that there aren't products on the market, medicines or medical devices that can produce harm instead of good. It's the same when it comes now to digital solutions and AI, particularly when these solutions are moving into the realm of diagnosis and therapeutics.
You mentioned the guidance that was just released, and a lot of it, as you said, is sort of underpinning it is transparency and about making sure that the data sets that the AI is learning from, are transparent and available to the regulators. I'm wondering, whether you expect possibly pushback from companies saying, well, that's actually my confidential data, and we don't want our competitors to be able to access that. How do we have these conversations where we say we want this to be transparent, but we also understand, that companies don't necessarily always want to share this data?
I think there is precedent. There is precedent in the way that we have been regulating other areas, notably medicines and medical devices. And of course, there are processes in place, and authorities have processes in place to do this, to ensure that dossiers are submitted, that the data is available, that the regulator has full access. I think actually, Ashley, what is even more important at this juncture is not just the data for the regulators, but that the public, the users, the health professionals and the beneficiaries also have trust in what is being developed. And transparency is critical for trust. In a few weeks' time, we come together in Tallinn for our Health Systems Conference that celebrates the 15th anniversary of the Tallinn Charter, a charter that was elaborated in 2008 for health systems and health development based on the principles, again, of equity, solidarity, transparency. And this time around, when we convene in Tallinn, we are talking about trust and transformation and the need to create a virtuous cycle between the two. And when it comes to AI, AI has a huge transformative power. But unless it is trusted by the healthcare professionals and by patients, then we will not be able to unleash this power and to put it to good use. So I actually go beyond the regulators, and I say that it's needed that the health professionals understand how AI is being developed such that they can trust that it will assist them with diagnosis, with interventions, and patients too.
That aspect of trust, I think, touches on the title of this panel, which is, do we need a Hippocratic oath for AI? And I'm wondering if you think that there needs to be some kind of, the people, developing these systems need to sort of abide by some kind of universal standards. Does there need to be some global, convention to come together and say, we're setting out these rules around using AI, and particularly for healthcare purposes?
So I believe that the guidance that was issued by WHO headquarters last week is already providing the parameters and the framework. Secondly, at the European level, we have actually issued a call for all stakeholders to join us as we set up what we call our strategic digital health partnership initiative. Why? Because we understand that the industry and the developers have to be part of the conversation, part of the solution. And knowledge is actually still quite scant. And we need to put, therefore, all our expertise and resources together to ensure that we move forward in the right direction. So this is not only about governments or authorities talking to themselves. We very much need to be talking to industry and to developers. But early on, we need to say, hey, these are the values, the principles, and the rules that we would like to see in place for the benefit of everyone. We have done the same, for example, on medicines recently, where we have set up a novel medicines platform, and we've invited all stakeholders in, including representatives of industry, because these are not easy challenges to solve. So we really need to put our best brains together. And this is why also, as WHO, we have a role to play in bringing countries together. Because when we talk about regulators, for example, countries in the European region may not necessarily, particularly smaller countries, have that kind of expertise. And we need to pool the expertise to be able to move forward in a sound and scientifically robust manner.
Thanks, Natasha. I'd like to hear a little bit more about this WHO AI office in Europe. I know it's not, hasn't been necessarily created yet, but there's plans for it. Could you tell us, what it might be doing? Where, what sort of stage are we? How many years till it actually is established on the ground and sort of a host country is chosen?
So, of course, there is a process that would have to take place. But at this point, as a secretariat, we have conducted an internal needs assessment. And we see that this function of supporting countries in the area of AI is a function that is needed. It will then be up to the member states to decide exactly how, if, when, where, etc. This is then the kind of business that is conducted, in fact, at our governance meetings, as is happening in Astana at the moment. But as a secretariat, we have highlighted that this is an area of need. And in fact, last year, we at our regional committee, we adopted what we call our regional digital health action plan, and AI and the need to support country capacities in guiding the development, regulation, and implementation of AI is one of the areas that we highlight in our regional digital health action plan. So we have marked this out as an area where we need to be able to support and reach out and build capacity in our member states.
And I'm wondering, are you seeing, countries who are much more advanced in this in Europe saying, well, actually, we can provide some support and, tell other countries that are sort of further behind in these areas about their experience and about what went wrong and what went right in implementing AI into their health systems? I'm wondering, because obviously there's a huge disparity probably across the EU around sort of the level of readiness for this. And I'm wondering how we sort of get everyone up to that same level that we might see some countries at.
this is actually one of the beauties of working within WHO, that we can convene countries together who want to work together, countries that are at similar levels of development in particular areas, who actually want to go further, and countries who can then often be in a position where they work with and support others who are coming on board. And this is what we are trying to do, as I said, also with our networks that we have set up, some networks for member states, but also with our partnership initiative. I get the sense that in this area, everybody is still very much learning fast together. And also when it comes, for example, to regulatory agencies in medicines and devices that increasingly are seeing that digital solutions form part, if you wish, of the package or of the technology being offered, that we are all trying to understand each other's experiences and bring the expertise together. And it's important, I think, acknowledging that this is what needs to be done, that we need to be able to share experiences, engage best practices, and sometimes also talk openly and frankly about concerns and challenges that we have. This is critically important. I think as we move in this area, we may find that it will be difficult for every country to develop the capacity that it needs. And indeed, for example, we are following closely also what the European Union is doing in this regard, because we know that it is moving also to ensure that it protects citizens, and therefore we are following closely developments in that area too. And we are working very closely with our counterparts in the European Union. We shall shortly be announcing a joint project in the area of data governance. And of course, we cannot talk about data governance today without talking about AI.
And talking about what the EU is doing, we see quite a lot of regulation when it comes to AI. The AI Act and health data and data more broadly, GDPR, medical devices regulation, the upcoming European health data space. There's nothing really that directly links AI and healthcare. Like there's no, people might moan and say, oh, another legislation, another piece of regulation. Do you think that there needs to be something specific that actually regulates AI and healthcare specifically, or do we need to be focusing on the specific area and not rather saying, oh, well, the AI Act touches on it there and GDPR touches on it there and the health data space touches on it there?
So I think, as you rightly say, we have two, one now very well-known instrument, the GDPR. We have the European health data space in the making, and we also have efforts towards an AI Act. I think we can draw one common conclusion, which is that when it comes to health data and application of AI to health, it's always going to be considered sensitive and higher risk. And that is, it's normal. We need to be ready for that. This is the way people feel about anything to do with their health and health data. It's precious. So we will have probably to acknowledge that when it comes to AI and health, there need to be certain safeguards in place, as we have, of course, with the GDPR, with the European health data space, that respect value and understand the way people feel about their data. Of course, we also need to ensure that there are safeguards when it comes to the security. When we're dealing with AI systems, imagine a situation where, for example, you have a breach or you have a cybersecurity issue. And I think these are some of the areas also that I like to say keep policy makers up at night, as we want to make sure that we get it right.
And do you think the WHO's role there, coming in and saying, we're setting out this guidance on how we want you to implement certain legislation, will enable sort of ordinary citizens and people sharing their health data with their health system to have a bit more level of trust, that they know that there's also something bigger, the WHO actually looking over this and taking an interest in this and making sure that, trying to make sure at least that things are going right?
It's actually very Nice of you to say that, Ashley. We do hope so. But we go beyond the guidelines and the norms and standards that are issued at the level of our headquarters, where really we have our scientific expertise, working, of course, with experts around the world. Because then at the level of our regional offices and at the level of our country offices, we work far more on the ground. And that is where we are in touch then with patient associations, with professional associations, with ministries of health. So we don't just, issue the guidance and put it on the website. We then need to take that and work with it and work with partners to help countries implement it and make it a reality. And I believe that is where WHO's trusted brand comes from, the fact that we sit on the ground with people who are struggling to implement, and we accompany them on that journey.
Thank you so much, Natasha. We don't have any more time, and I'm going to let you get back to those important discussions in Kazakhstan, but it was a really insightful conversation. We're certainly going to have many, many more of these sort of discussions on AI and healthcare as it remains sort of a growing force in this area, and many big questions for bodies like the WHO, as well as regulators and policymakers, and as well as politicians. Please remain seated for the next panel, which is on medical data and on the European health data space. Perfect fit after this discussion. Thank you so much, Natasha.